The Chief Justice he'd appointed to the Supreme Court died, and President Harding said, there's William Howard Taft. He was president. He wanted to be on the Supreme Court. We need a Chief Justice. And Taft became the only president to also serve on the Supreme Court. We visited his home on a book signing tour in Ohio, and it's a small home. Actually, there was nobody in it, just us. So we had the run of the place to ourselves that day. It was great. It's wonderful when you can go in the middle of the week. And there was a nice quote of Taft while he was Chief Justice, saying, there are some days I don't even remember that I was president. This is the job I was born to do. Which makes it all the more strange when you look at his early history and you realize he turned down 2 appointments to the Supreme Court. One of them, while he was Secretary of War for Teddy Roosevelt, he was in the Philippines. He was Governor General of the Philippines, trying to set it up as an independent country. And there was an opening on the court. And Roosevelt said, well, do you want it? Taft said, I really want it, but I'm in the middle of a really important job here, and I don't want to leave it undone. So he stayed in the Philippines, turned it down, and he got his seat later. Yes.
Okay,
Oh,
I have a comment that I don't know if you don't, maybe
Yes.
you don't know this. What is the earliest photograph of a presidential wife?
Good question.
What is the earliest photograph of a presidential wife? Well, let me try and sound foolish, and then you can give it the correct answer. I do remember pictures of Sarah Polk, but I assume those are much later because they're in her mourning garb. I don't know.
Dolly Madison.
Dolly Madison. There you go. When?
Oh, 1830. I'm not sure. 4.
Oh, okay.
She posed in a picture with Polk.
Yeah, national war.
There we go. Dolly Madison. Dolly Madison actually was First Lady for 16 years. You knew that part?
Yes.
Thomas Jefferson came to office as a widower. His wife was actually the first presidential wife to die. Martha Jefferson died 10 years after they were married in the 1780s, long before Jefferson became president. So he had no wife while he was in the White House. And his official White House hostess was the wife of the Secretary of State, Dolly Madison.
But his daughters also.
His daughters sometimes served, but Dolly was actually the official White House hostess. And that's a term the White House has when you look at the history. The official White House hostess, as opposed to First Lady, was Dolly Madison. And then her husband got elected, so she kept the job for another 8 years. In the back, I cut somebody off.
What were the terms of the pension for Mary Todd Lincoln?
I don't know. That's a little esoteric for now. What were the terms of the pension for Mary Todd Lincoln? Was that something specific that you know?
Apparently, she was broke after Lincoln died, and there was no pension, and she was sort of making things, well, yeah, she's kind of nuts. And she was making things look bad, and there was some sort of pension set up for her, basically to not have her dragging around in rags and be poor.
That makes some sense. I'm afraid I don't have any details on it. I do know their son, Robert Todd Lincoln, was unfortunately connected with a couple of presidential assassinations. How's that for a tangent to get you off the one that I don't know? Can't dazzle them with your brilliance. No, I don't know. Mary Lincoln was a sad case after Abraham died and wound up in asylum for a while. I don't know the terms of the pension. I'm sorry.
We had one thing where it's kind of esoteric too about the first woman president. You kind of alluded to that earlier.
Actually, I don't think I mentioned it at all, but thank you for bringing it up. Yes. We'll get to the before Washington, but let's go with the first female president. We were talking about the order of succession, which is the president, if the president dies or is incapacitated, the vice president takes over. And if there's no vice president, Secretary of State, Speaker of the House, President pro tem of the Senate, and then down through the cabinet. But in 1919, the president was apparently incapacitated, and for 6 months the acting president was apparently Edith Wilson, the president's wife. Woodrow Wilson went to Europe, negotiated the League of Nations, came back, traveled around the country trying to drum up support for the League of Nations, which, by the way, the Senate did not approve the treaty and the United States didn't join, in part because Woodrow had a stroke and was rushed back to Washington, and for 6 months nobody saw him. He was in his bedroom, and Edith said, I brought all the important papers into Woodrow, he made all the decisions, he signed them. Nobody knows. Woodrow and his vice president didn't get along all that well. And so Edith probably conspired to keep the vice president from knowing the true extent of the president's illness. Otherwise, he would have been the acting president for that time. So for 6 months, we probably had a female acting president. Nobody really noticed a major difference in it, so I guess it worked out okay. Yeah.
I know how many other children of the president were married while the president was in office, besides, of course, Jenna.
How many presidential children were married while the president was in office? Many of them, actually. I believe it's 18 of them were married in the White House itself, or on the grounds. 1 or 2 of them were married in the Rose Garden, and 1 or 2 were actually married at Camp David. I think it was just 1, actually. Yeah, it's a significant number of them were married while their fathers were president. I don't have the list offhand just because it was so many of them. That it seems almost common. Almost.
What about Robert Todd Lincoln?
What about Robert Todd Lincoln? Robert Todd Lincoln was Abraham Lincoln's son. Well, his father was assassinated while he was president. I mentioned that James Garfield was shot while waiting at a train station in Washington to go visit his wife. With him at the time was Secretary of War, Robert Todd Lincoln. And then, yes, McKinley in 1901 actually asked Lincoln to be part of his cabinet, and Lincoln turned him down. Robert Todd turned him down. He said, I think I've had enough government. And McKinley himself was assassinated in 1901. So stay away from Robert Todd Lincoln, who is no longer with us. He was a bit of a curse, apparently. He was a good guy. Yes?
I understand that Dolly Madison was political there also, but she had no means of support.
No visible means of support.
She received sort of an unofficial pension, mostly supported by the presidents who followed, and she was a very popular guest at the White House.
Yeah, Dolly Madison was a big figure around Washington all the way up till the end. So was Edith Wilson.
But they supported her unofficially.
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying. Many of the presidential widows, either there were official or unofficial acts to help them support. James Madison did have something of an estate he left her, which was kind of small, and she went through.
Now her son went through it.
Her son, or yes, her son.
What was
Thank you.
the curse of the presidents?
Excuse me. Sorry.
It was a,
You cover all the curse, I was just curious.
And that's what I heard from the front too. No, I did not cover the curse. The question was the 20-year curse, which is no more apparently. And I seem to be running out of time. So really quick, the 20-year curse. Every president elected in a 0 year starting in 1840 died in office until Ronald Reagan survived, but Reagan got shot. William Henry Harrison elected in 1840, died in 1841. Abraham Lincoln elected in 1860, assassinated in 65. Garfield elected in 1880, assassinated in 81. William McKinley re-elected in 1900, assassinated in 01. Harding elected in 1920, died in 1923 under mysterious circumstances. It probably was indeed that he just kicked the bucket. Franklin Roosevelt elected for the 3rd time in 1940, died of a cerebral hemorrhage in 45. And John Kennedy. Sorry?
4th time.
Yes. Well, no, 1940 was the 3rd time he was elected.
Yeah, but in 1945 was number. He was already on number 4.
He was in his 4th term, yes. But the curse kicked in 1940 when he was elected. And in 1960, John Kennedy was elected, assassinated in 63. And in 1980, Ronald Reagan was elected and almost assassinated in March 1981. Missed him by that much, apparently. The doctors said, geez, how did he walk in? 5 more minutes and he'd be dead. But he wasn't.
Right.
Also, just to round it out, the one other president who died in office wasn't elected in a 0 year, but he died in a 0 year. Zachary Taylor died in 1850. And I'm running out of time, so
books are available.
I've got books, and I think I have to move out in the hall, and thank you for your attention.